Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of philosophy, and we are discussing regarding the chapter symptomatology from the Stuart Close. We are going little bit slow in this chapter because there are many concepts which we have to understand and which are practical. So we have to learn all those practical aspects which will be useful everywhere in our practice. So we're going to start with those concepts, out of which first we have discussed that the concept of materia medica, how this clinical materia medica is developed in homeopathy by proving drugs on healthy human beings in the very expressions as given by the patient. And that's why homeopathic materia medica is the entity which is full of symptomatology, and there are varieties of symptoms which are included over there. In the similar manner, he starts with the symptomatology, and while explaining the symptomatology, he explains over there the two important varieties of symptoms first, the subjective and objective. The subjective plays very vital role in the human being, very much vital role in the homeopathic practice, because subjective expresses the individuality of the person, whereas objective symptoms are nothing but the signs. And objective symptoms are the signs which defines only the pathologies, the end states. And that's why we, from our point of view, when we deal with any pathology, when we deal with any type of patient, what the symptoms which are important for us are the subjective ones rather than the objective ones. And after explaining the importance of subjective and objective symptomatology in homeopathic practice, he started explaining about the importance of totality of the symptoms. As Hahnemann have rightly said in the seventh aphorism, it is an outwardly reflected picture of the internal essence of the disease. And he was explaining why Hahnemann have said the word picture, outwardly reflected picture. This word he is explaining, and this is the right thing which Hahnemann have explained. Because this picture is nothing but the totality of that human being. The symptoms which carries the individuality through its symptoms is called as a totality. And this is nothing but the picture of that individual. So we were on page number 153 and we were discussing the same paragraph. We'll start with there. So it is the symptom picture which is technically called as totality. The totality must express an idea. So you must get a totality which will directly presents an idea. Yes, this patient, this picture looks like a lycopody. This picture looks like a sulfur. This picture looks like a calcarea. This picture looks like a belladonna. So this totality must express an idea. When studying a case from diagnostic standpoint, for example, certain symptoms are selected as having known pathological relation to each other, and upon these is based the diagnosis. The classification of symptoms thus made represents the diagnostic idea. Diagnosis is made on common symptoms, and those symptoms are pathologically correlated with each other. So we have a patient complaint that patient is having the vomiting, patient is having the fever, patient is having the constipation, and patient is having pain in right iliac fossa. We immediately come to the conclusion patient might have the appendicitis. This is the diagnosis. Diagnosis is always done on these common symptoms and which are pathological symptoms. But we can't come to the remedy on the basis of this. Patient comes with diagnosis of appendicitis, we cannot prescribe. Because diagnostic symptoms are the symptoms which are pathognomic symptoms, but which never defines exactly the individuality. The classification of symptoms thus made represents the diagnostic idea. Just so the totality of the symptoms considered as the basis of homeopathic prescription represents the therapeutic idea. So when you classify on the basis of common symptoms of the disease, you come to the conclusion of diagnosis. When you get a characteristic symptoms of the individual which are expressing the individuality, then we come to the therapeutic idea. And then we come, yes, this patient might look like a synapse nigra. This patient looks like a sepia. This patient looks like a a parcel. Because we are considering the characteristic. These two groups may be and often are different. The elements which go to make up the therapeutic totality must be as definitely and logically related and consistent as are the elements which go to make the diagnostic totality. So, for the therapeutic totality, you must have symptoms which shows the individuality. In the similar manner, for the diagnostic totality, you must have such symptoms which are related with the disease. Here, in case of therapeutic totality, those should be related with the individual. There is a variation. So, if the patient comes who has holded or he has held his hand on the in the right iliac fossa, very hard pressure, and he's bending forward, and he comes to you with severe pain in right iliac fossa, and he says, "Doctor, there is tremendous stitching. I cannot remove my hand. I cannot move. Whenever I move, it hurts me a lot. I cannot relieve my hand. If I relieve, it will pain." And he associated with his tremendously dryness of mouth is there. There is tremendous thirst is there. Thirst for large quantities of water is there. Then patient has constipation since 2 days, has hard black stools over there. So the whole story denotes you a therapeutic totality. And this therapeutic totality defines the remedy. As Rasal has very clearly mentioned, it is bryonia. Yes, very clearly it is bryonia. Because this is therapeutic totality. Appendicitis, if patient is having appendicitis, you cannot come to the conclusion of a bryonia without this therapeutic totality. So there are two types of symptoms, some symptoms which are called as diagnostic symptoms, which are common one to the disease, and the second variety, the therapeutic totality, the symptoms which are there, which are indicating an individuality of the person. The totality is not, therefore, a mere haphazard, portentous jumble of symptoms thrown together without rhyme or reason, any more than the similar haphazard collection of pathogenetic symptoms in the proving constitutes the materia medica. So, whenever we are proving the materia medica, it used to produce a series of symptoms. It's whenever you start proving, for example, if you have started proving the belladonna, you will get whole totality of the belladonna through the proving it on healthy human beings of different ages, different both sexes, and at a different places with belladonna in different potency. And we get the collection of symptoms, and which are nothing but the expressions. They are pathogenetic because the functional and sensational manifestations comes out. That's why it is called as a pathogenetic. Disease producing symptoms are the pathogenetic symptoms. And this is nothing but the collection of materia medica in homeopathy. This is the totality. We know the totality of a belladonna because we read the belladonna from our materia medica. And how this materia medica is born or developed is nothing but from the provings on healthy human beings. So, whole data of the belladonna is collected, and that is what is the totality of the belladonna we know. In the similar manner, we used to consider the bryonia, we used to consider the calcarea, we used to consider lycopodium, the sulfur, the kalikap, the causticum, all those remedies, and we understand the therapeutic totality. The totality means the sum of aggregate of symptoms, not merely the numerical aggregate, the entire number of symptoms as particulars or single symptoms, but their sum total, their organic whole as an individuality. So it should not be just numerical totality. We have hundreds of symptoms of the patient, but doesn't signify any remedy, doesn't have meaning. We must have the totality, even it might be a single symptom, but which is too characteristic to define the idea of the remedy. The location should be a characteristic enough. The sensation might be a characteristic enough. The modality should be characteristic enough. The concomitant should be characteristics enough. So single symptom defines the whole idea of the remedy. Patient comes to you with a coryza, and he is having a coryza, and he said that I am having dry coryza. Then you don't understand what he exactly mean by the dry coryza. He says that nothing comes out from the nose, it goes inside only. And it goes inside, it gets aggravated by the cold drop. It is associated with the fullness sensation in the paranasal sinuses in the frontal head, as if there is a sensation as if the cold air has been blown into the forehead. That sensation is concomitant sensation along with the coryza. And you know the remedy then. Because a single symptom itself defines the remedy. Because here the things are characteristic enough. This is postnasal discharge aggravated by the cold drop, associated with the floating sensation inside the frontal sinuses or frontal bone. It is not calibichromicum. Postnasal discharge is very typical. If it is calibichromicum, then discharges are from the nose and they are stringy. Here the remedy is corallium rubrum. So with the help of a single characteristic symptom, we are able to catch a remedy because the totality is characteristic. We have to understand that thing. This is what he wants to explain. As a machine setup complete and in perfect working order is more than a numerical aggregate for its single dissociated parts. So the totality is more than mere aggregate of the constituent symptoms. It is the numerical aggregate plus the idea or plan which unites them in special manner to give them its characteristic form. So you must get that type of totality which gives some form to the picture, which defines you. Yes, this is the remedy. You must get that type of totality which is expected over there. This defines exact idea about you. And this is what he wants to explain about the totality. So it should not be many symptoms. It should be symptoms which should be associated or having some form. As the parts of the machine cannot be thrown together in any haphazard manner, but each part must be fitted to each other part in certain definite relations according to the preconceived plan or design assembled as the mechanic says, so the symptoms of the case must be assembled in such a manner that they constitute the identity and individuality which may be seen and recognized as we recognize the personality of the friend. So he is explaining what is exactly totality. The totality here explains exactly the idea as if he has explained about the assembled machine, where each part is exactly fitted to the another part, and the next part is again fitted to some other part, and it has been very nicely correlated so that you are able to catch exactly the idea and function of that machine. In the similar manner, when you think about the disease totality or patient's totality, you must be able to catch that whole idea. Each symptom is fitted to the another and third one, and then that makes you a totality, which gives you an identity very specifically. This is calibicromic, or this is calcareous, this is lycopodium, this is sulfur. You are able to come to the conclusion of a clear idea about the remedy because of this. And this is what he wants to explain over there, that these are nothing but the characteristic symptom which gives you an exact idea of the totality of the symptoms. The same idea underlies the phrase genius of the remedy. Genius, in this sense, being the dominant influence or the essential principles of the remedy, which gives it in its individuality. Patient comes to you. She is a lady around 35, 40 years of age, having a menorrhagia, and she She explains, doctor, that I am having the problem of bleeding, and bleeding is absolutely red color, but clotted, and it is so stringy that it is very difficult to wipe it out, to remove it. It produces a stringy, thin layer over there. Finished. You get the characteristic, the menses, which are bright red, clotted, stringy. Very important remedy. Because that defines the whole core of the remedy. Which is the remedy? Anyone?
Euphrasia?
No. The remedy is Crocus sativus. It is Crocus. Where the bleeding hemorrhages are stringy, it's Crocus. All discharges are stringy or it's Calibicromicum. But whenever the hemorrhages are stringy, it is Crocus sativus. Bleeding is stringy, very typical. So we must be able to get such a genius of the remedy which defines the remedy. Patient comes to you with a eczematous pattern, having severe itching, burning, and he says, doctor, I have to keep it in warm water. Yes, this is the genius of the remedy. Burning better by keeping part in the warm water or warm application is the arsenic album. Genius of the arsenic album. This is the core which defines or directly gives you a remedy. This is what we have to understand. The idea of totality as an abstract form or figure has been applied to the materia medica as a whole. The materia medica as a whole is the sum of the symptoms of all proved medicines, a grand, all-inclusive figure which may be imagined or personified in the form of human being or superman. This conception being based upon the anatomical, physiological, psychological plan or framework of the materia medica. So, materia medica is built through this totality of the symptoms which are proved on the healthy human beings of the remedy. And it has been properly written. It has been arranged so nicely so that it becomes quite easy for us to understand. If we read a remedy from Borix Materia Medica and read it in proper manner, understand each and every sentence, word, then it becomes rather fit in our in our mind because it is systematically arranged. Then we are able to catch, yes, this remedy is having very specific action on such and such part. We must know it. Whenever we are learning the materia medica, we must have that clear idea. Every remedy which is explained over there has its meaning. You must be able to read that remedy again and again, and then it becomes fixed in your mind. Then it's quite easy to catch it from the patient. So we must be able to understand where is the site of action of each and every remedy. What is that constitutes the core of the remedy. If we are considering the sepia, we must know that this remedy has very typical vascular action. Very important. Because this vascular action of the sepia defines exactly the role of sepia. You get it is in portal congestion. This has been mentioned in Borix Materia Medica. We never understand the pathology behind that. The sepia is having very typical vascular action. That's why it is a very good remedy for hemorrhoids also. It is very good remedy for varicose veins also. You must be able to understand the core of action where exactly that this remedy has a sphere of action. Everything we must know about the remedies. If we are thinking of the natrum sol, first sentence he says it is a liver remedy. You must able to understand what exactly he means by the liver remedy. When we understand about the remedy, palladium, and ovarian remedy, very specifically mentioned over there, the site of action. So we must know the materia medica by heart, whatever is proved, and learn it in a proper manner, we never forget. The idea is applicable in exactly the same way in pathology. Disease in general, considered as a whole, is composed of the totality of the symptoms which represents it to our senses. The pathological totality also can be personified and pictured by the imagination in the form of human being. Starting with this conception, some of our ingenious writers have amused themselves and added to the gaiety of the profession by personifying medicines, microbes, and maladies and casting them in all sorts of roles, a dramatic whimsy which has its value as an educational expedient for certain type of mind. The pathological totality is one form with which we can understand exactly the diagnosis. Patient comes to us having very typical sore throat, he's having hoarseness of voice, he's not able to swallow, and you ask him to open the mouth and you see that whole pharyngeal wall is swollen and you label pharyngitis. Are you able to come to the diagnosis of a remedy, or are you able to come to the right remedy with the help of that? No, it's not possible. It's not possible because these are the symptoms with which you have coming to the some conclusion of a diagnosis only, but not the therapeutic diagnosis. With this, you are able to catch, yes, patient is having pharyngitis. If you know the pharyngitis, then you understand, yes, this patient might have this problem, this patient might have developed pharyngitis because of such and such thing. These are the complications of pharyngitis. All those things you can understand. But you cannot come to the conclusion of a remedy. And now the patient comes who is having the pharyngitis, and if you observe, there are follicles in the pharynx. It is follicular pharyngitis. Patient is not able to swallow, and he says, Doctor, I'm having this problem very severe. Along with I have very severe backache. It is since this pharyngitis has started, I have started getting the backache. Now you get something which doesn't have clinical correlation directly with pharyngitis and backache, but it is coming at the same time. Then you must able to think about certain remedy, because this is therapeutic, this has therapeutic value, a characteristic concomitant. Which is the remedy? Follicular pharyngitis associated with chronic lumbago. Any idea? No. It is Aeschylus. Aeschylus is having very typical follicular pharyngitis associated with chronic lumbago. Lumbago is associated with each and every complaint of Aeschylus. So this is what we must know. We should not get just a disease totality or pathognomic totality. So pathological totality also can be personified and pictured by the imagination or in the form of human being. Starting with this conception, some of our imagination or ingenious writers have amused themselves. So they have written all those things, but this will not going to guide you in any specific direction. Your remedy should not be based upon this pathological totality, but our remedy should be based upon the therapeutic totality, which is individualizing that individual specifically. We must have characteristic location, we must have characteristic sensation, we must have characteristic modalities, we must have characteristic concomitant with which you must get an idea of specific thing. And this is what he wants to explain in that paragraph, that on the basis of microbes, on the basis of very specific diagnosis, if you are thinking about the remedy, it is wrong. You should not make it only on that. You must be able to make it on the characteristicness of the symptom, and then only you are able to give a right remedy. The Materia Medica, from this point of view, becomes a portrait gallery of the diseases, a sort of medical rogues gallery by means of which we may identify the thieves who steal away our health and comfort and brings them to justice. In homeopathic practice, to carry out the simile, we merely set a thief to catch a thief. So he has compared it with thief. If you want to find it out a thief who has robbed the house, if you will tell to the police that they have two eyes, one nose, one mouth, two ears, you cannot define anything. It is not possible to explain or to find it out the thieves over there. But if you are able to tell them the what what type of clothes they have worn, in what language they were talking, how they were looking, exactly the picture about them, if you are able to make a frame, then police can find it out that those things. It is same thing which you have to apply when you are doing homeopathy and you are catching the totality. So to get right totality is very important. It should be characteristic enough so that you can get a very perfect remedy for the patient. So we'll stop over here and we'll continue with the same in tomorrow's session. Today evening, we'll continue with the belladonna at 8 o'clock and we'll meet again at 8 o'clock. So thank you being there. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Welcome.